Om Namo Narayanaye. Om Namo Narayanaye.
Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha. So, we're continuing with our discussion of Hari Bhakti Vilas, and we're in the 11th Vilas. And we just got through with a whole lot of glorification of the holy name and pure devotional service. And now we're coming to general codes of conduct for Vaishnavas. And this is for all sorts of Vaishnavas. Hari Bhakti Vilas is not just meant for Gaudiya Vaishnavas, although it is a gold standard sort of book for Gaudiya Vaishnavas. It was originally ordered by Lord Chaitanya to be written for his followers specifically. But the way in which the Goswamis have pulled together, especially Gopal Bhatta Goswami, have pulled together quotes from many, many scriptures, it shows us that there is some variety in the lifestyle and codes of conduct and etiquette of different Vaishnava groups and different Vaishnavas. And that's to be expected when reading Hari Bhakti Vilas, that we read some general terms, general codes of conduct and general rules and things like that. For specific rules, of course, it's always suggested that we follow our elders. And that can mean the elders in our family, if our family are also Vaishnavas, or it can mean our Guru Parampara, our lineage, our particular lineage. So we always say, you follow the directions of your lineage, of your gurus, of your teachers. When there's any alternate idea of how to do things like that, normally we do that. If there's no direction coming from the elders in the family, the elder Vaishnavas in the family, or the acharyas in a particular parampara, then we can say, if there's an alternative given in the scriptures, then the person is free to accept one or the other, like that. So there may be alternatives, and people may be free to follow the alternative that they find more acceptable. So with all that, having said that, let's have a look at what Hari Bhakti Vilas says about general codes of conduct for Vaishnavas. So we're in the 11th Vilas, text 681 to 683. Ata acharaha. Acharaha means code of conduct. The word achara means conduct, prachara means preaching. So it said that both things have to be there, that one has to have good conduct, one has to also preach the glories of the holy name, preach the doctrines and practices of Vaishnavism. That is, they're the duties of all Vaishnavas. And so here we have, in a conversation between Alva and Sagara, that discusses the duties of a householder, right? So here it's specifically set up here, grihastachara. Grihasta means a householder. The word griha means house. So a person who owns a house, not just a person who lives in a house, but a person who owns that house. Today, of course, people can rent a house, grihastas can rent a house, but the person who has a house, let's say, right, is a grihasta, like that. Of course, the other ashramas, like brahmachari, vanaprastha, and sannyasa, the vanaprasthas and sannyasas, vanaprasthas go to the vana, the forest. The sannyasis, they don't own a house, right? So they also are supposed to wander about like that. Of course, since the introduction of the mat system, where we have institutions, it might be that a sannyasi lives in a type of house which is a mat, or an institution, a spiritual institution these days, like that. Brahmacharis also might live in the mat, right? So this shouldn't be, the mat and the temple shouldn't be confused with the house. The mat or the mandir or the prasada, which is another name for temple in Sanskrit, should not be conflated with the griha. Griha is the place for the grihasta, so the householder with his family, like that. So that now it's interesting that sometimes the brahmacharis, the Gurukula system, the word guru means teacher, kula means family. So actually, the system is that the brahmacharis, or the young male Traivarnikas of brahmacharis and vaishyas, right, would go to the house of the guru, and the guru would be a grihasta, the teacher would be a grihasta, and they would live with the grihasta's family. That's why how the word gurukula comes about. The gurukula means the family, living with the family of the household of guru, like that. Of course, nowadays, another alternative meaning for kula might be it might be just said it's the place of the guru, like that. But actually, the word kula in Sanskrit means family, the family of the guru, of the teacher. So this is because traditionally the teachers were grihastas; they were householders. Okay, so enough about grihasta ashram. And if people want to know more about the ashram system is a system of different stages in a person's life. The varna system is the system of different classes in society, of different types of people, which is very, very old, comes from the Rig Veda. And these two divisions of society into classes and stages of life, or varnas and ashramas, is called the varnashrama system. The system of varnas and ashramas, of dividing society up into different groups that follow certain different rules. So these codes of conduct, according to the Dharma Shastras and things like that, will not be the same for everybody. So it's unlike modern law that we're familiar with in the Western countries. In the Western countries, there's one law, and it doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, how young you are. Actually, sometimes it matters how old you are, but it doesn't matter who you are, what class of society that you're in. Everybody is the same. Everybody follows the same law. Okay. Whereas in the Vedic system, or let's say not the Vedic system, but the medieval Varnashram system, in the Varnashram system, there's a division according to Varna and Ashrama in the society, and according to that, in that medieval Varnashram system, according to the Dhamma Shastras, there's these 4 Varnas and 4 Ashramas. The 4 Varnas are Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, right? Intellectual, administrator, entrepreneur, and worker, right? And the sections, the ashrams are student, celibate student, householder, retired person, who goes to the forest or whatever, retires, the retired person, and the renounced person awaiting death. Those are the 4 stages in life. Now, not according to the Dharma Shastras, not all of the varnas, not all of the members of the different varnas are eligible for all those different stages, like that. For instance, traditionally, women would not be celibate students. However, today we have the term brahmacharini, which means not a brahmachari, but a female brahmachari, like that, a student, like that. So traditionally, the girls would learn at home. They would learn from their mothers, like an apprenticeship with the mother. And the boys of the Traivarnika, the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, they would go to the Gurukula of the Guru. The boys who were born in the Shudra class, and according to the Dhamma Shastras, there's only 4 classes, although this is a little bit nebulous, because some other classes of people are mentioned, and they're not exactly called Shudras, but foreigners. They're foreigners from, like, for instance, Cambodians, Chinnas, Chinese and Cambodians, and of course we have that famous verse that we mentioned previously from the Bhagavatam, which talks about Hunas. Hunas means Germans, and Huns, we would call them in the West. Mlechas, Yavanas. So all of these sort of designations, which we tend to believe as jati. Jati is a different thing from varna. Jati means the group that you're born in. Varna, however, has a different meaning, and it's a whole discussion as to what the word varna means. The word varna actually in Sanskrit means color, like that. So it means a different class, So getting back to that, so not every not every ashram is in the medieval varnashram system, according to the Dharma Shastras. Not every ashrama is available for every class of person. So, for instance, the highest class, the Brahmana class, it's possible for him to go through the different all the 4 stages: brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, and sannyasi. The Kshatriyas, who are also Trivarnikas like the Brahmins. When I say Trivarnika, I mean belonging to the 3 higher castes or classes, right? They can be brahmacharis, they can be grihasthas, they can also take vanaprastha and retire, but typically they don't become sannyasis. That is left only to the Brahmin class. So for them, three ashramas. For the Vaishyas are the entrepreneurs or the business persons. Those people also can be brahmacharis. They can also be celibate students, go to the Gurukula, learn the Veda, etc., according to the medieval Dharma Shastras. And they can also become grihasthas, but typically they don't retire. Typically they continue to work throughout their life, and they die in the grihastha ashram like that. So for them, 2 typical ashramas. And then for the Shudras, for the Shudra males like that, they are not considered eligible even for the ashrama of brahmacharya, because when they reach puberty, they're supposed to be married off, and they're not able to remain brahmacharis or celibate students like the other Trivarnika males, right, who go to the Gurukul. So for them also, like the ladies, they also take some sort of apprentice situation like that. So we have 4 classes: the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, the intellectuals, the administrators, the entrepreneurs, and the workers, out of which each one has a decreasing number of ashramas or stages of life that he can attain to, like that. So 4, 3, 2, 1. So we in fact have 10 different types of people in the medieval varnashram system, not 4 times 4 or 4 plus 4 or whatever it's like that. So for those persons who are interested in varnashram, they can get in touch with me and we can discuss it some more, and we can look at the actual quotes from some of these shastras, and it becomes very clear that there are these 10 different sections of society according to class and according to stage of life. And that is the varnashram system. The varnashram system is meant to worship Lord Vishnu, and those persons following it do eventually attain liberation, but it's a very slow system. It depends upon taking birth in the next. The medieval concept is it's in the Dharma Shastras is that one takes birth in a higher caste by following all of his codes of conduct, his duties, which we're going to talk about, his varnashram duties correctly in one lifetime. She or he gets elevated to a different class of person in the next life, or perhaps a different gender, and therefore is elevated in terms of their social position, and ultimately reaches the position of a Brahmin, and then from there can attain moksha or liberation, salvation. So it's a very slow system, However, it is one system. It is one system for doing it like that. So how compatible and how useful that social system is today is a matter of great debate. And there are some people in India, of course, who do still try to follow that system, but practically speaking, that system is defunct in all of the details that are mentioned in the medieval Dharma Shastras today. It's defunct in India and around the world. However, we can say that all societies do have the seeds of these different classes in them, because, of course, the Vedas mention these 4 classes as I mentioned before, in the Purusha Suktam: Brahmanosya Makmasi, Bahu Raja Nikutaha, Urutarasya Dvaishaha, Abhyam Sudro Jayata. So these 4 classes of people are actually universal. They're sort of universal. And we can even see in not even just human beings, but amongst, for instance, the monkeys or the vanaras. We don't know if they're exactly monkeys, but the word vanara means not human beings or subhuman beings, who were the followers of Lord Rama in the Treta Yuga, right? Those monkeys, they had kings, they had queens, they had ministers, they had, so they had people working in different classes. They had different classes in their society also, just like the human beings. So it's not specifically a human thing, but we can see the seeds or certain aspects of varna, of class division in different societies. Even if we look at some of the animals like the bees, we have worker bees, we have drone bees, we have queen bees, like that. So we tend to classify certain animals in animal society by different classes like that. So this class classification is usually by the type of work that that particular animal, that particular human being does, like that, which is given to us in the Bhagavad Gita by Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna says that he created the system of division into four things, which is shown in the Vedas, 4 classes. And he says Chaturvanyam, the 4 classes. Maya Shrishtam, I created that. It came from me, from the Lord. And he says Guna Karma Vibhagasaha. It is according to the guna, or the qualities or aspects of a particular being. And, in case of the Jivatman in a particular body. And karma, according to his actions. Of course, the word karma can also mean according to the reactions from his previous births too. So there's a lot to talk about when discussing Varnashrama and codes of conduct. People talk about what is Rajya Dharma, the code of conduct for kings. What is Brahma Dharma, the conduct for Brahmins? What is Brahmachari Dharma, the conduct for celibate students? What is Sri Dharma, the conduct for ladies, like that. So there's all these different dharmas like that, and the dharmas is what can also be said is achara, is conduct, like that. Of course, ultimately in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says at the end, sarva dharman parityaja, give up all these dharmas and just surrender unto me. So the aspect of Vaishnavism actually is a system, unlike the Varnashram system, but somewhat compatible with the Varnashram system, but much faster and much quicker and much easier, because it emphasizes the surrender of the person above and beyond all of these non-eternal codes of conduct that somebody has to follow in a particular society, like in the Varnashram society, which is according to our guna and karma, our qualities and our work, like that. So we have certain things. So how much Vaishnavas emphasize the Varnashrama rules or the codes of conduct, and how much they de-emphasize them is, I don't think anybody today, I could name anybody who fully 100% follows the Dharma Shastras 100%. Those persons who try to follow the Shmriti Shastras, the Dharma Shastras to 100%, tend to be called smartas, and to one extent or another, the Vaishnavas follow the Shmriti Shastras because, according to Gaudiya Vaishnavas, Rupa Goswami is Shruti Shmriti Purana Di Pancharatra Vidim Vina, that without following the Shrutis, the Shmitis, the Pancharatras, and the Shruti Shmriti Purana and the Puranas and Pancharatras, there's a disturbance in society. So certainly some rules from the Shrutis, the Shmitis, the Puranas and Pancharatras should be followed by Vaishnavas. However, when those rules or the details of those rules come in conflict with Vaishnava doctrine or Vaishnava philosophy or Vaishnava practice, then they tend to be glossed over or discarded by certain Vaishnava groups. And that will depend upon the Vaishnava group. So here we're going to talk about some codes of conduct which may or may not be applicable today to people living in India, people living in different parts of the world, or Vaishnavas in general. So that should be kept in mind. So some of these things we may have to take with a grain of salt, saying, okay, this is a rule, and this rule applies to a medieval society that follows very strictly the Dharma Shastras, but may not be so applicable today in certain circumstances. And in every case, the codes of conduct, there are certain etiquettes and things like that Vaishnavas follow. But then for every rule, we may have an exception, or we may have a reason, a time, a place, a circumstance, kala patra desha, some different circumstance that we need to adjust the rule. This is why it's very important to listen to our Vaishnava elders and also to the members of our particular lineage, whatever our gurus, whatever acharyas, whatever the Vaishnavas, the sadhus say to us, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. These all have to be in concert. They have to be taken together like that. Also, the conduct of the previous people in our lineage and the previous acharyas and the previous Vaishnavas and even the previous Vaishnavas in our own family, if we have Vaishnavas in our family previous, that has to also be taken into consideration. That is called Shishtachara. Shishtachara means traditional behavior of our ancestors, of the people that came before us. So even if that is a type of proof, that tradition is a type of proof. In other words, we've done this for so many years. We've always done this. Everybody thinks that we should do like this. So therefore, we should continue doing it like that, even though technically it may not exactly follow some of the technical details given in the scripture, or it may be an adjustment in some way because it's become a tradition in our Vaishnava family or our Vaishnava lineage or sampradaya. We can follow it. It's not a problem. So this is also, I think in the Bhagavatam also it talks about different proofs. Of course, pratyaksha, anumana, and shabda, direct sense perception, a logical inference, and of course, authoritative statement. Now, again, the authoritative statement is of the scriptures, but also of the Vaishnavas and the acharyas, the teachers, like that. So all of these things have to come together and have to be understood as rationalized as being the same. When one of them is out of sync with the others, especially when some people suggest things that are clearly wrongly told in the scriptures, then that has to be discussed. And in this case, sometimes there's an adjustment made by different Vaishnavas and different acharyas for time and place and circumstance. Take that all in mind as we read about the codes of conduct, like that. Now, what I've just said, the whole thing that I've just said here, okay, some people may be more orthodox or less orthodox in opinion of what I just said, like that. So again, look to your seniors and look to the people who are senior Vaishnavas in your family or in your lineage, and see what they say about each and every point, like that. So there may be some people who are more orthodox or more traditional in one aspect, but they're less traditional in another aspect. And we see that with different sampradayas also. How a particular sampradaya deals with fasting days, how another sampradaya deals with the worship of the acharyas or the alvars or different saints. You know, it may differ. So we have to take that into consideration. All right, so without further ado, let's look at these codes of conduct. So this is coming from Vishnu Purana, duties of a householder. So we're talking specifically about a householder, a married person, that's found in Vishnu Purana. Vishnu Purana, of course, is a Satvika Purana written by Parashara Rishi, the father of Veda Vyasa. All the other Puranas, all the other 18 Mahapuranas were compiled by Veda Vyasa. 6 of them emphasize the mode of goodness, Sattva Guna, 6 the mode of passion, Rajaguna, and 6 the mode of ignorance, Tamaguna. So let's look and see what the Vishnu Purana says, because it's a Sattvic Purana and it's a very important thing. Now remember, in most, there's a hierarchy of scriptures. Of course, the Tamasic scriptures are the lowest, the Rajasic are higher than that, the Sattvic Puranas are higher than that. Most Vaishnava groups hold that the Shruti or the Vedas, the Nigama, not the Agama, but the Nigama is the highest scripture, like that. Similarly, but Gaudiya Vaishnavas may have a slightly different idea, thinking that the Bhagavatam is very great. Of course, all Vaishnavas accept the Bhagavatam or Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Purana as a very great Purana, Sattvic Purana, and we accept it, of course. No, everybody accepts it. However, if a statement in a lower a scripture which is considered not to be the highest scripture, like the Vedas, contradicts a scripture in the Vedas or the Upanishads, most followers of Vedanta will say that the the statement in the Vedas supersedes or overrides any statement that seems contradictory in other scriptures like the Puranas, like that. Even in the statement by Rupa Goswami, Shruti, Smriti, Puranadi, Pancharatra, Vidhim Vina. Okay, so we have Shruti, Smriti, Purana, and Pancharatra, right? So normally in Sanskrit, we normally mention the most important thing first, right? So when we have a compound like that, so Shruti, Smriti, Purana, Adi, means beginning with Shruti, Smriti, and Purana. Beginning with Shruti, Smriti, and Purana, and Pancharatra, right? So Shruti, in that statement, Shruti comes first. He didn't say Purana, Shruti, Smriti. You always hear it. You always also hear Itihasa Purana. You don't hear Purana Itihasa. Usually is the way it's stated in Sanskrit. So normally the Itihasas like Mahabharata and Ramayana are considered to be hierarchically higher or more important scriptures than the Puranas. Now, to understand in your own group, in your own sampradaya, what the hierarchy of different scriptures is, for example, in the Gaudiya Vaishnava system, go to the Tattva Sandarbha by Jiva Goswami and read his explanation of what, why the Bhagavatam is considered to be the greatest scriptural pramana, and why it's difficult to find out Vedic injunctions from the Vedas because we don't have all the Vedas today. Even though we do have many Vedas today, but we don't have all the Vedas today, and some other reasons. But it's important for each sampradaya, each acharya in each sampradaya has given a full explanation of their understanding of what scriptures are more important and what are less important in the whole scheme of things. So it's important for us to go into and to understand specifically for our sampradaya and our group what the hierarchy is, like that. But in general, if you can find a Vedic injunction for something, it tends to carry more weight amongst most people in India, even today, than simply reading a quote from a Purana or from Pancharatra or some other text, even the Alwar's prayers in Tamil or whatever it is. So these are all considered scriptures, but still within scriptures there are different levels. So and this is confirmed also by Srila Prabhupada. If you read Prabhupada, I think it's his introduction to Sri Upanishad, which is his only book, which actually is part of the Vedas. Upanishad is the chapter 40 of the Kanva or the Madhyandina section of the Shukla Yajurveda. The Yajurveda, unlike the Rig Veda, Samaveda, and Atharva Veda, is divided into two parts: the Krishna and the Shukla, the black and the white. So the white Yajurveda has a Samhita, or a set of prayers, and then all the Vedas have, separate from the prayers, they have also got the Upanishads. So only in the Shukla Yajurveda we find one Upanishad, the most important Upanishad, and the first Upanishad in the list of 108 Upanishads, in the Muktika Upanishad, which is the very last 108 of the traditional list of Upanishads, which you can find in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Srila Prabhupada lists all the 108 Upanishads, which are generally accepted as the basic Upanishads. And there may be hundreds more, which are accepted, but the Muktika Upanishad lists the 108 Upanishads names, and the very first one is the Isha Upanishad, and the reason is it's called Samhita Upanishad also because it comes in the Samhita section. It's so important that it actually comes in the Samhita section and is not kept in a separate section. So all other Upanishads come separately. For instance, the Taittiriya Upanishad in the Krishna Yajurveda comes in the Taittiriya Aranyaka. The Aranyaka, again, the Brahmanas and Aranyakas are also separate books from these Samhitas, which contain the hymns of the Vedas. So if we want to find an Upanishad actually in the Samhita section, the only one is the Isha Upanishad. So in Prabhupada's introduction to the Isha Upanishad, he's specifically mentioned that in India, if there's a discussion about different rules and regulations, say from this Shastra or that Shastra, from this scripture, that scripture, and which one is more important, like that, he specifically says, he doesn't say about from different places. But he says, if you have an injunction from the Vedas, it's called a Vedic injunction, then you can immediately quote it, and people usually accept it out of hand. If you say it says this in the Vedas, you can show it says it in the Vedas, everybody accepts like that. So everybody accepts Vedic injunctions as being very high and very powerful like that. Whereas others, some people, you may tell them, well, it says this in the Bible, it says this in the Quran, it says this in some other scripture which is not considered to be as important as the Vedas, and they will say, well, okay, it says it there, but what does it say in the Vedas? Like that, it's not very important. So the Vedantins, all schools of Vaishnavism follow slightly different flavors of Vedanta, of Upanishadic understanding and realization, and so it's important to know that, to know your own lineage and to know your own interpretation of the Vedanta, and the Vedanta, the explanation of the questions, the philosophical questions in Vedanta or the Upanishads is explained by quoting the Upanishads, by quoting different sources from the Upanishads as a commentary to the Vedanta Sutras or Brahma Sutras. The different acharyas establish their different lineages or sampradayas, and they establish, by quoting different sections of the Upanishads, they establish the principles and doctrines of their own sect, like that. Okay, so let's have a look at the translation here. So translation to text 681 to 683. This is about householder conduct. A householder should offer his obeisances to the Supreme Lord. Okay, cows, brahmanas, elderly people, and his spiritual master 3 times a day. Okay, so what exactly is the offering of obeisances or pranams in Sanskrit? Pranama in Sanskrit can be debated, right? So there are different ways to offer the obeisances. The most simple way to offer obeisances is, of course, mentally, like that, or physically by holding the hands together in what's called Angeline Mudra in front of the chest, like that. Sometimes people put it over their head, place it over their head like that, but in front of the chest. And you'll see that this is a typical greeting that is done in the Indian subcontinent or among people of the Indian diaspora all over the world. It's also, if you go throughout Southeast Asia, where the Vaishnavism had spread all over, or Hinduism had spread all over Southeast Asia, you'll find that in Asia, people tend to put their hands together like this in a prayer-like manner, which is called Angeline Mudra, and that is the system of offering respects to another person. And usually this is accompanied in India. In Hindi, people will say namaste, or even Sanskrit namaste means my respects to you. Te means you. Namaste means my respects or obeisances. In South India, it might be namaskaram or something like that, but something like that. There are other forms of address which accompany the Anjali Mudra. In Vrindavan, people might say Radhe Radhe, they might say Ram Ram, or some other greeting like that to offer respect to the other person. Okay, so that's one way of performing obeisances. Now, it's a simple way. Now, another physical way is to prostrate oneself on the ground or to bow down, touching 5 limbs of the body to the ground. That is called Panchanga Pranam. If you prostrate like a stick on the ground, laid out completely, that's called Astanga Pranam, with 8 parts of the body and the mind touching the ground in front of the person. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has mentioned this. He's mentioned taking a straw in the teeth, right? Trinadapi and thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. So in Shikshastakam, he's mentioned that the mentality of a person, it's very important for chanting the holy name and for attaining, advancement in God consciousness, right? That one be humble, right? So humility means placing the head, which is the top part of our body, at the bottom part of others' bodies, like at the feet of somebody, at the feet of someone we respect, like that. So this is very common amongst all Hindus, but especially Vaishnavas, to offer full prostrations before the teacher, before the elders, like this. Here he's saying before the Supreme Lord. Obviously, going into temples, one does that, and cows, brahmanas, elderly people, and the spiritual master 3 times a day is what he says here, like that. So that's nice. That's a very nice statement here. Now, there's a question also, if we prostrate, either by Panchanga Pranam, five aspects of the body touching the ground, or Astanga Pranam, and sometimes the ladies, they only do the Panchanga Pranam, although we can see some iconographical evidence in Sri Rangam Temple and some other places in South India. We see that even the ladies can prostrate, Astanga Pranam. And some sampradayas restrict the ladies from doing Astanga Pranam, and they say that they should only do Panchanga Pranam type of obeisances. We won't go into it totally here. That's a long discussion. Again, follow the traditions of your particular group. And here it's stated that it should be done 3 times a day. So what does that mean exactly? Okay, so does it mean that when we see the Supreme Lord or the cows or the Brahmanas or elderly people and spiritual master, that we lay down 3 times and then get up and that's it for the day? Or does it mean that we should meet these people or see these people 3 times a day, and each time we should just do it once? We should prostrate once. So the question about single obeisances or single prostrations or single pranams versus multiple pranams is also a contentious issue amongst some groups. Some groups say that prostration should be done once only, because prostration indicates surrender to that person, placing oneself at the feet of that person, like that. Whereas, and that surrender should be done only once. After you surrender something to someone, you can't then take it back and surrender it again, right? In English, we have this saying called Indian giver. It means somebody gives a gift and then takes it back, like that. So if you surrender to a person, the idea of surrender is that it's only real surrender if it's done once and once only, like that. This is also a doctrine that has to do with the surrender of the Vaishnava to the Supreme Lord, or approaching the Supreme Lord to the consort of the Lord, or to the representative of the consort of the Lord and the Lord, the spiritual master or the teacher. Okay, so here, whether that prostration should be done multiple times or single time is a matter of debate amongst some groups. Some groups don't have it. We see in the scripture, we see some evidence for people doing it one time, and we also see evidence of people who have done multiple prostrations because their feeling is that they want to respect the person and they want to surrender to the person again and again and again. So either thing is okay. Please also again check with the Shistachara, the traditional practice of your particular group or your family or your Vaishnava family or your lineage, like that, or sect. So, okay, so now we're going to go to the next sentence. The next sentence is, and there may be other ways of offering pranams also that I haven't mentioned. So it's a big subject. Okay, so he should worship the fire god and chant his mantras twice in a day. Okay, so let's see. Agnim upachet tata. It says here sandhyam. Now, okay, so this was not translated exactly. Dvikalancha namet sandhyam. Okay, so there are 2 times of the day called sandhyas. Sometimes we say there are 3 or sometimes even 4 sandhyas. What does sandhya mean? Sandhya means the conjunction of 2 parts of 2 things. 2 things coming together. In Sanskrit grammar, it means 2 words coming together. Okay, in terms of our daily activities, it means there's one sandhya when the sun rises in the morning at sunrise. Between the night, there's a junction between the night and the day. There's a junction between the forenoon and the afternoon at noon when the sun is completely overhead. There's a junction in the evening between the day and the night. This is also called a sandhi, like that. Some people add a 4th sandhi, which is in the middle of the night, say at midnight or whatever it is. The middle of the night is not necessarily exactly midnight, right? Because the time of the day, time of daylight and the time of night will change depending upon the longitude and the latitude, depending on the latitude of the place that you're in. So it may be that the sun rises very early at one part of the year, rises very late at a different time of the year. And so therefore the days get longer or the days get shorter. And so strictly speaking, when we speak in the scriptures of the middle of the day is the middle of the daylight time. and the middle of the night is the middle of the night time. So that doesn't necessarily equate to 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time or whatever standard time you're on, either in the day or in the night. So, but for just general speaking, in the middle of the day, there's a sandhya between pre-noon and afternoon. You have to find out the differentiation between local time and local time for your exact latitude and actual, Eastern Standard Time or whatever the time in your time zone is. That's a whole other discussion. We can discuss a little bit more about that in the next chapter when we talk about Ekadasi, which is a specific lunar day on which certain festivals and festivities and actions or conduct has to be taken up by Vaishnavas. Okay, so how to calculate that will depend upon a deeper understanding of the movements of the sun and the moon. So, okay, so we'll talk about that in the next chapter. Okay, so now what is being told here in the Sanskrit is that at the sandhyas, at 2 sandhyas, first of all, at 3 sandhyas, we offer respects to in the first line to the Supreme Lord, the cows, the Brahmins, the elderly people, and the spiritual master. Okay, so this can also, another interpretation of this is that there are these 3 times a day, because the word sandhya was used there, right? There are these 3 times a day at sunrise, sunset, and noon, right? When we offer respects to the Supreme Lord and we offer respects to the spiritual master by chanting the mantras given to us in the initiation for the spiritual master and for the Supreme Lord. So this is called Sandhya Japa, or the repetition, the repetition of the mantras in meditation on the particular personalities like the Supreme Lord or the spiritual master, like that. So if one should remember them, and this is a form of offering obeisances. There's another form, a mental form of offering obeisances, is this mantra japa, or mantra meditation, or meditating using those Sanskrit slogans or spells called mantras, which help to control our mind, which represent the Supreme Lord and represent the spiritual master, like that. So in the terms of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, the main mantra which is used is the 18-syllable Gopal mantra, which was mentioned in the second Vilas, well, actually in the end of the first Vilas, which is about finding a spiritual master, and given by the spiritual master to the person following Gaudiya Vaishnavism in the second Vilas, in the process of mantra diksha or Vaishnava diksha. And then later on in the 17th Vilas, we'll learn about how to perfect that mantra. Part of perfecting that mantra is regularly chanting that mantra and meditating on the meaning of that mantra, the deep esoteric meanings. So the spiritual master has to give the mantra, and he has to give the mantra, and he also has to instruct the student, his student. The teacher has to instruct the student on how to use the mantra. If there's any other ancillary or anga mantras or practices that go along with the use of that mantra in different situations. The mantra may be used in puja. The mantra is used, of course, in japa meditation, and it may be used for other purposes also, like tarpana, which is the offering of water oblations to different personalities. So it may be used in different rituals, and it may be used simply for meditation also. And so that all those procedures, along with the mantra, along with the lineage that the mantra came down to the student through the spiritual master from the Supreme Lord, should be explained to the person at the time of initiation. And this is all very clear from Mantra Shastra and even from Haribhakti Vilas. And then also on top of that, the meaning of the mantra, the esoteric, first of all, the literal meaning, and then the figurative meaning or the deeper esoteric philosophical doctrinal meanings that are there within the mantra have to also be explained to the person. So that's explained by the mantra guru or diksha guru. It may also be explained by some other guru, some other teacher, like a shiksha guru. So a shiksha, another teacher, like that. In the case of Ramanuja, he had one person who gave him the mantra, another person who explained the deeper esoteric meanings of the mantra. And that's common also in all sampradayas and all lineages. It's possible to hear different aspects about the mantra from different persons. Okay, so these mantras are then chanted along with the other mantras. If a person is a Trivarnika male and he has Upanayanam, the sacred thread ceremony, and he's given the Vedic mantra, the Gayatri Mantra, Om Bhurvavasvaha Tattvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat, that particular mantra. Brahma Gayatri is called, or Savitri Gayatri, which is a prayer to Sriman Narayana, Surya Narayana within the sun. And it may have other esoteric meanings also according to different sampradayas. There are realizations by different acharyas of different sampradayas about that mantra. But that mantra is to be chanted 3 times a day at dawn, sunrise, noon, and at dusk. And this is called Pataha, Madhyanika, and Sayam Sandhya. This is the junction of the day, the 3 junctions in the day, like that. Because it's a solar mantra, it has to do with Surya Narayana. So therefore, the junctions in the day are important. There might be some other mantras which is important to chant in the middle of the night too, but they don't have to do with solar deity, obviously, because the sun is not up. So there might be some people who perform sadhanas like that. Anyway, let's not get sidetracked. The point here is that offering obeisances to the Supreme Lord and to the spiritual master may be also interpreted here in this verse to be the chanting and the mantra meditation on those particular mantras of the Supreme Lord and the spiritual master 3 times a day during Gayatri meditation, like that. Okay, at the same time, there are also 2 sandhyas. There are 2 sandhyas, the morning sandhya, at dawn or sunrise, and the evening sandhya at sunset, at which particular fire rituals are prescribed, not only for brahmacharis and for grihastas. Here we're talking about a grihasta. The grihasta has to do, there are two ceremonies which he can do. There's a smarta ceremony, according to the Shmitis, and there's a shrauta ceremony. The smarta ceremony, which he does, the fire ceremony, which he does morning and evening at sunrise and sunset, the smarta ceremony is called Upasana Homa, like that. And it has to be done with the wife. The husband and the wife together have to do the homa. In the absence of the husband, the wife can do it. In the absence of the wife, the husband cannot do it. Right? There are so many rules and regulations about it. It's the offering of a few grains of rice to the fire, which is kept in a cow dung ball in a pot, or if the house has a yagshala in it, in the Garhapatya Homakunda, like that. The Garhapatya is the household fire, like that. Every 2 weeks, a special version of that, or a different version of that called Stalipaka is performed, right? In which rice is cooked on that fire, and the cooked rice is offered to give more strength to that fire. That fire is called Smarta Agni. It's a Shmiti fire, and it's distinct from another type of fire called the Shrauta Agni. Now, Shrauta Agni, the householder can also perform the Shrauta Agni. Now, the Shrauta Agni ritual every day, which is also done at dawn and from what I've seen, mostly if people do these things, they pick one over the other and they don't do both, like that. So you have people who are smartas and people who are shrautis, and they don't sort of do both, but it would be possible actually to do both. And that Shrauta sacrifice in the morning and evening is called Agnihotram. Agnihotram. The Agnihotram also, like the Upasana Homam, is performed morning and evening at the sunrise and sunset. These 2 sandhyas, which is mentioned here, right? So it says here, he should worship the fire god, chant his mantras twice a day, right? So this is what it's talking about. It's talking about worship of the fire god, or Agni, like that. Who is Agni? The word Agni means fire, but it has a deeper significance to Hindus. It means the personality of fire, the Devata or demigod Agni. It has an even deeper understanding amongst Vaishnavas. It means the supreme personality of Godhead, Lord Sriman Narayana or Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu, right? Who is powerful like fire. And this is confirmed if you read the Isopanishad translation by Srila Prabhupada of ISKCON, that in the very last verse, I think it's verse 18 of the Upanishad, Agnena Supataraya Sman Vishwani Deva Vayavan Vidvan, Yudgod Yasman Juhurana Mino, Uyishtam Te Nama Uktim Videma. So it starts out with the word Agne, which is the vocative case, means O Agni. Srila Prabhupada in the word for word translates the Agne or O Agni to be O Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, who is powerful like fire. So this is very much in line with a standard doctrine of all Vaishnavas, is that all names and actually all forms, but let's just talk about all names that we know about actually originally belong to the Supreme Person, right? Because the letters come from the Supreme Person. Even Jiva and Sanatana Goswami have explained about this in the Harinamamrita Vyakaranam, the Dasa Dasa Avataraha. They look at the letters of the alphabet. Narayana, it's stated in this grammar of the holy name of Lord Krishna called Harinamamrita Vyakaranam, which was originally written by Sanatana Goswami, who also here has given the Tika or the commentary on Hari Bhakti Vilasa. He was the one who was ordered by Lord Chaitanya to write Hari Bhakti Vilasa. He has written another book called Harinam Amrita Vyakaranam, which has been shortened into a sangshept, into a shortened form by, I believe, by Jiva Goswami. And the very, very first sutra to explain Sanskrit grammar there is to say that all the letters of the alphabet actually come from the Supreme Lord. They come from Sriman Narayana or Krishna, like that. So the sutra there in Harinam Mridipyakaranam in the very beginning is Narayanad Udbhutoyam Vanakramaha. Vanakramaha means that the letters of the alphabet have come about one after another from Narayana. Narayana Udbhutoyam Vanakramaha. They all come up from the Supreme Lord. It's actually, we know this from the Vedas. Narayana Brahmo Jayate, Narayana Dinto Jayate, Narayana Prajapati Prajayante, says the Narayana Shishra Upanishad. So we know that everything comes from the Supreme Lord Krishna. He's the source of all sources. In Gaudiya terms, in the Brahma Samhita first verse is Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachirananda Vigraha. Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. That Sarvakarana Karanam, Krishna is the source, he's the cause of all causes. So if Krishna is the cause of all causes, he's also the cause of the alphabet. He's the cause of all names and forms. So if he's the cause of all forms and all names, then all forms and names ultimately are primarily Krishna. And secondarily, he may lend these names to different devatas or different demigods, or even to different personalities like ourselves who take a name of the Supreme Lord, like that, or even to different objects, whatever it is. And this is also confirmed by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, where he says, I am, by all the Vedas I am to be known, right? He says, by all the Vedas I am to be known. So that means every verse and every letter and every word, what to speak of every prayer is made to Krishna, is made to the Supreme Lord Sriman Narayana of every verse in the Vedas. Regular Hindus and Western scholars, they think that Hinduism is polytheistic, that all of these different people that are being prayed, that there are all different people, all different gods that are being prayed to in the Vedas. This is not a fact. The different names in the Vedas and the Upanishads all mean the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, or Sriman Narayana, right? So this is also confirmed, as I said, in Isa Upanishad, when Srila Prabhupada translates O Agni as not O fire, but O Supreme Personality of Godhead who is powerful like fire. So this should be very clearly understood that by every name that we know, even the word, and if anybody who knows Vishnu Sahasranam, the 1,000 names of Vishnu from the Mahabharata, will know that Shiva, Durga, Ganesha, these are all names of Vishnu in the Vishnu Sahasranama. So if we say Sarva Sarva Shiva Stanu, Shiva means Vishnu there, like that. The primary meaning of the word Shiva is Vishnu. It means auspicious. The primary meaning is Vishnu. The secondary meaning is that there is a devata or a demigod in charge of the destruction in the material world who is called Shiva, like that. So, but these names primarily mean Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna. So here, all of these Vedic and the Shruti and Smarta acts of worshiping the fire god, Here he says the fire god. Okay, right? I take a little bit of an exception to the translation here, because what is being stated here is the worship of God, not the fire god, but the supreme God, Sri Krishna, or Sriman Narayana, like that, in the form of fire. In the form of fire is to be worshipped twice a day. So either by the smarter ritual of Upasana and every 2 weeks Stalipaka, or by the ritual given in the Shrutis, in the Vedas, of the Agnihotra, and every 2 weeks the Ishti, which is the ceremony which is done every 2 weeks to make the fire stronger, like that. So these are the 4 different sacrifices that are done, and these are done twice a day, like that. The Ishti, of course, and the Stalipaka and the Ishti are only done once every 2 weeks, and usually I think on the Pratama, which is the first lunar day of the month, the first lunar day of the Paksha, the fortnight, either the Shukla Paksha, the bright fortnight, or the Krishna Paksha, the dark fortnight of the moon. We'll explain a little bit more about this when we get into the next chapter, which talks about Ekadasi and the different calendars that people have, and how they tell time, and because we have to know how to tell time in a Vedic way or in a Vaishnava way, in order to predict the good times and the bad times. The good times to perform the proper rituals, and the bad times to avoid when performing particular worship of the Lord, etc. So this all it means that we have to understand, first of all, the calendar, the time divisions, and this is explained in the Vedas also. If we look in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a chapter that talks about time division according to the Vedas, from very, very short divisions up to very, very large divisions like kalpas and yugas and all of these things. So from the batting of an eye, or from the crossing of the sun over a paramanu, which is a 1/6 of a speck of dust that you can see in the light of the sunlight. This is a different type of division of time. So anyway, getting past that, right? Getting back to this. So he's recommending here that the householder should perform the fire sacrifice. He should perform worship. He doesn't exactly say whether it's the Upasana Smarta worship or the Agnihotra, the Vedic worship. But he just says he should worship God through the fire twice a day, like that. So this is there in Hari Bhakti Vilasa. Now, who is doing that today? Very few people, okay? But it is written here in Hari Bhakti Vilasa, and he's given the quotation. The quotation is from Vishnu Purana. So in fact, there are people who do this. There are Smartas and Shrauti. To a certain extent, we all follow Shmiti, right? Rupa Goswami again said, Shruti Shmiti Puranadi. So we follow all these scriptures like that. But again, as I said in the beginning, in the introduction, whether we follow them strictly or not, there may be certain aspects according to time, place, and circumstance that we don't follow. For instance, if I'm traveling from one place to another, how can I perform a fire ceremony if I'm in a plane, or if I'm in a train, or if I'm in a car, like that? So this all depends upon having a stable griha or household and also perhaps a stable finances, right? When one doesn't have to go to work at that time, or one has the time to perform these particular rituals. So there are so many reasons why that these rituals might not be performed, but at least if they can't be performed externally, one could perform them internally, or one could know how to do them when he does have time, when he retires, or when he has, on the weekends when he has time off, he could perform those like that. Although some of the aspects of worship of God in the fire in these ceremonies of Upasana and Agnihotra require the fire to be kept from one morning session to the evening session to the next morning session, and to be kept eternally going, which might be very difficult if one could only do these ceremonies on the weekends. So also the Vedas and the different Shastras have prescribed ways that a person can reignite the household of fire, reignite the fire in the household, either the Smarta Agni or Shrauta Agni, whichever one is used, right? Because they're considered to be slightly different. And how to reignite them if they go out, like that. Because there's always, with a fire, there's always the possibility that you have to keep it, and it goes out, it can be reignited like that. In fact, the traditional system is that the householder at the time of his marriage, when he gets married at the Vivaha Samskara, the fire is invoked, and that fire is invoked as the fire of joining the two people together. It's called Yojika Agni. Yojika or yoga means to join together, right? And so this fire of joining people together, and that fire is kept up by the householder in worship throughout his householder life until his death, right? Until his death. And the same fire is used for the cremation of the person's body at the time of death, which is this final sacrifice. It's called the Unchased. So we had, for instance, the Vedic sacrifice that I told you about every day is called the Agnihotra, and once in every 2 weeks we have a thing called the Ishti sacrifice. The Antyeshti, or the cremation of a person, is nothing but the Antya. Antya means at the end. At the end of what? At the end of life. At the end of a person's life, Antya Ishti. It's the Ishti that he performs, the Ishti sacrifice last Ishti he sacrifices, not just rice on the fire, but he sacrifices himself, his own body on the fire. So this is also a Vedic ritual. It's a Vedic. So the idea is that one should be doing these Ishti sacrifices throughout his life every day in the form of Agnihotra or Ishti. And at the end, when he passes away, the person who is the Karta, or his descendant, his son, right? Usually his son, it may be some other person who has to do that, like that, if the son is not available. But usually the eldest son is the one who places the father's body on the fire and burns the fire like that. This is, of course, mostly for Trivarnika males, right? People who are born Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishyas and male, like that. For others, they don't have any education from the Gurukula in Vedic mantras, so they can't perform these Vedic ceremonies like that. However, as I said, the wife is necessary for the everyday, for the Upasana Homa. If one is doing the Upasana Homa, he has to get permission from the wife to perform the Homa. And there's a mantra that he says, there's a question in the form of a mantra that he says to her, and she has to give assent by chanting the word Jahomi. You can, she there's something that she says, we won't go into it now, that she has to give permission, and then only he can perform that. We see also in the Ramayana that Lord Rama, after Sita was banished to the forest when she was pregnant in the last part of the Ramayana, that Lord Rama, when he had to also perform these ceremonies like that daily, he had a deity of his wife made of pure gold, of Sita, to sit next to him at the fire, right? Because the Grihastha cannot perform the fire without the wife like that. Similarly, today, in some sampradayas, and according amongst Pancharatrins, for instance, in the Sri Sampradaya, the rule is that a Pancharatrin has to do particular fire ceremonies and fire worship of the Supreme Lord like that. And he doesn't have the eligibility to do it unless he is married. So, for example, Sampath Kumar Bhattacharya, who I studied with like that, his wife had passed away. After his wife had passed away, that meant he was a widower. He did not remarry. The normal situation would be the person has to remarry if he wants to continue performing the fire ceremonies like that. And this is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita says, Sasanyasi cha yogi chanani ragni chakriya. So in Bhagavad Gita, it's stated that a sannyasi lights no fire and performs no work. A sannyasi or a yogi, like that. So persons who are engaged in yoga, we might say that the brahmacharis and vanaprasthas and although vanaprasthas might be permitted to perform fire ritual, but usually if a vanaprastha, there's two types of vanaprasthas or retired persons. One who goes to the forest alone, and another one who takes his wife along with him. And it's possible to take the wife along with you. And in that case, we see there are different ashrams in the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, in the Itihasas or histories, the epics, we see that the different rishis would go to the forest and they would have their wives there, and they would also perform Agnihotra. They would also perform the fire ceremony. But normally, it's a requisition. It's a prerequisite that the person is married, like that. So even today, even when I was studying with Sampaka Mahabharacharya, he was criticized very heavily especially by the Ahobilam Matir, who's very strict on different technicalities, and he would say that you have no right, you have no adhikari or qualification to perform fire rituals because your wife died and you did not remarry. You must be married, okay, like that. So similar in some other religions too. We have the Eastern Orthodox clergy in the Christian church who have to be married, like that. Whereas you have the Roman Catholic clergy who cannot be married. They must be celibate. Okay, so there's some similarity in some other religions also about this. But in any case, here he's saying he should worship he should worship God through the fire and chant his mantras twice a day. So these mantras are for worshiping the Lord as fire in the fire. So continuing on, a householder should first purify himself. Now, how does a person purify himself? Here it seems, if we look at the Sanskrit, right? If we look at the Sanskrit, it may say, so it seems to be in the second verse here, sadhanupate vastre, right? So it's again talking about after putting on fresh cloth, right? So this is the last part of this sentence. So let's take the whole sentence as one. A householder should first purify himself and then put on 2 pieces of fresh cloth, a suitable amulet, and some golden ornaments. Okay, so here, what the translator is saying is that first he has to purify himself, right? So we're talking about the beginning of the day, or we could say the beginning of the ritual, which are done either 3 times a day or twice a day. So whenever we perform one of these rituals like Sandhya Vandanam, which is mentioned in the first sentence here, right? Or fire ritual, right, which is done twice a day. So Sandhya Vandanam is done 3 times a day, fire ritual done twice a day. In any of these rituals, the first thing that has to be done is the person has to purify himself. How does he purify himself? If necessary, he has to go and do his ablutions, and he has to attend to the calls of nature, like that, pass stool and urine, whatever he has to do, especially when getting up in the morning. After that, I think we've already dealt with this in some earlier chapters, which is called Asocha, in terms of the 5-fold different activities of a Vaishnava throughout the Vaishnava day. First one is called Abhigamana. Abhigamana means getting up, going and doing Saucha, purificatory activities like going to the bathroom and then taking a bath, like that. So here he's supposed to do that in a ritual way, and he's supposed to also take a bath in a ritual way in a tank of water, like that, or in a river, like that, or if necessary by pulling water from a well, like that, some ritually pure form of water. Or if not, there are other forms of bath, which I think were mentioned before in I think the fourth Vilasa. I'm not sure. I think it's fourth Vilasa, because the situation Hari Bhakti Vilasa is a little different from other Anikams, in that it talks about initiation. It talks about finding a guru, finding a teacher, getting initiated, etc. first, and then the third Vilasa talks about activities done immediately after getting up, just like washing the hands, mouth, and feet, and then getting dressed with fresh clothes and immediately maybe putting some tilak on and going to the temple. But then after the Mangalarti, the initial trip to the temple, then in Hari Bhakti Vilasa, the person then comes back home, takes bath in the house, or goes to the river or to the tank and takes a bath. So in any case, this purification here talks about the type of purification that we have to do. After the bath, then the person puts on fresh cloth, and here it's talked about 2 fresh pieces of cloth. So normally, the normal situation is that there's a lower cloth and an upper cloth. The upper cloth is either wrapped around the upper body in the same way as the Yagyopavitam over the left shoulder and under the right arm, like that, or it could be wrapped around like a chadar or some sort of blanket around the. Of course, it's not a blanket; it's a piece. Usually, it's a piece of cotton or silk cloth, like that, which is pure. And then on the bottom part of the body, there's another piece of cloth like that. They don't mention underwear, but some grihastas, they wear underwear. Other grihastas don't wear underwear. There's a type of system of loincloth which is worn by people in India called kopina, which is normally reserved. It's a must for sannyasis, let's say, like that. But for others, including grihastas, it's not necessarily a must, because the grihastas wear the bottom cloth in a system called panchakacha, where there are 5 folds in the lower cloth, and one of those folds goes underneath and between the legs and around the back, and therefore covers all of the lower part of the body. If that is not done, then perhaps the coconut should be worn. Okay, so there are different rules about this in different sampradayas and different sects and things like that. So anyway, he puts on a piece of fresh cloth. It's interesting also that during the ritual bath, which we could go into in some detail, if anybody's interested, the ritual bath is also done wearing cloth and wearing different types of cloth. Maybe 2 pieces of cloth at least when performing the ritual bath, and there are some things to be done with the cloth. The wet cloth has to be wrung out. The water coming from the wet cloth is a type of oblation to certain forefathers and things like that, and there's different rituals to be performed in a technical ritual bath. I think it's mentioned in some places here about that system. Anyhow, let's not get too much into it, but he performs his ablutions and takes a bath, puts on these two pieces of cloth, a larger piece of cloth around the lower part of the body, which is either a lungi or a dhoti, right? And is tied in a particular way. For grihasta, it should be a panchakacha with 5 folds. And then, of course, there are also regional differences, and also differences between the different classes of people and how they wear their cloth in the Indian context. And the angavastram, or the chadar, or the upper garment, which is either worn in very hot climates around the waist, or over the shoulder, or around the body, upper part of the body, in different parts of India. So, right, so he should put those on, and then a suitable amulet. He should put on an amulet like that. Let's see exactly what the word amulet is about here. I'm not sure. It's interesting that we have here. We could go into the meaning of some of these words. I'm not really prepared to go into all the meaning of some of these words, but let's just take the English for now, but more research has to be done exactly what is being stated here. A suitable amulet. An amulet would be some sort of spiritual thing that a person will wear. In terms of Vaishnavism, this is stated in the Vishnu Purana: Ye kanta lagna tulasi nalinachamala, ye bahu mula parichinhisa shankha chakra, ye valalata palati likudud vapundra, ke vaishnavaha bhuvanam asitavitriyanti. So in Vishnu Purana itself, it says that the person will wear tilak, right, which is considered like an ornament, like that. But also he would wear tulsi and nalinaksha lotus seeds on his chest, and he may be sporting the marks of Vishnu on his arms, the conch and the discus. He may also be wearing some sort of other ornament which has to do with the Supreme Lord. And it says some gold ornaments. Now, gold ornaments could be rings, it could mean earrings, it could mean so many things like that. Exactly what it means, we have to look in the Sanskrit, and we have to see if there's any commentary also. So that will be interesting to research like that. In any case, he gets ready completely with all these items, and then after that, he should comb his hair. Okay, so it's interesting. So obviously, the grihasta has got hair. Otherwise, it wouldn't say he has to comb his hair. Now, whether it means simply the choki or the kudumi, as it's said in Tamil, the sika in Sanskrit, which is the tuft of hair, which is on the head of Brahmins usually, but also could be for other male Traivanikas in Gurukula. They might keep the head shaved and the face shaved, and they might be keeping the kudumi or the tuft like that. And this is also another form of discussion, because the tuft, different Brahmins and different classes in society in different places in India, there are different places for the tuft. There's the Adarasika, which is on the back of the head, and there's the Purvashika, which is on the top of the head, which is knotted in the front like that. And this is seen specifically in the Kerala Brahmins called Nambudris. They keep the Purvashika. So there's a Purvashika, one that comes in front. Purva means in front. And then there's the Adarashika, which is more common in the back like that. There may be also other groups that are keeping more than one shika on the head and from different parts of the head like that. There are also people who do not shave the head, but they have longer hair. They tie the hair in a certain way. All the people in the Vedic civilization used to tie the hair. The ladies tie the hair or braid the hair. Men tie the hair. It's important to tie the hair because otherwise different hairs will come and pollute the ritual offerings that we use, the items that we use for the worship of the Lord. So in order to tie the hair, in order to arrange the hair properly, one has to first comb the hair. So here he's saying here, comb the hair nicely, smear sandalwood paste, and then obviously after combing the hair, one has to tie the hair up. Smear sandalwood paste over his body, right? So sandalwood paste is to be smeared on the body, preparing the person for performing these particular rituals, and compose the mind. So after doing all of these things, the mention of sandalwood paste here also could be taken as a veiled reference to putting on the tilak, putting on the Vaishnava caste mark or class mark of Vaishnavas, Urdhva Pundram on the body, like that. Although it's not usually done with sandalwood paste, but it's usually done with a different type of material, either the white clay and the red powder or yellow powder, or the yellowish gopi, sort of tan gopi chandana clay, which comes from Dwarka, or sometimes with the clay from auspicious places like Radha Kunda in Vrindavan. People make these different tilaks, or in the case of some sampradayas, they actually take the prasadam charcoal that's been used to offer dhupa to the deity, like in Udupi Krishna. The Madras take the charcoal and they mix that with water and they put a black line in the middle of the forehead. So there are many different types of markings that indicate the different sects and different sampradayas. Okay, so that's a whole other topic. We won't go into it here. So he should comb his hair and then smears sandalwood paste on his body. Normally when males put sandalwood paste on their body, if you have a huge amount of sandalwood paste or some other paste like that, because India is very hot, they'll cover the whole chest, which is if the angavastram or the top cloth is around the waist, they'll cover the whole chest and the upper arms with that, like that, and that'll have a nice cooling and scenting effect, like that. If ladies do it because they're covered, their tops are covered usually, although in some ancient sections of Bharatavarsha and other places in Asia, the ladies also were bare to the midriff. They were topless in some places, in some situations, which you can still see today in some places in Southeast Asia and India, like that. Then they would have covered the chest also, like the men. But today, ladies will take this sandalwood paste and they'll apply it a little bit to the neck here, like that. Or we can also see, if we go to places like Burma, Myanmar, and Cambodia, what they do is they apply it like a cosmetic on the face, like that. So if you go to those countries today, even today, you'll see people put like tilak on their faces, like that, especially the ladies, and it's considered to be like a type of cosmetic, right? And of course, we're all familiar with the Indian and the Western forms of cosmetics that women wear today. They wear kumkum and they wear they wear mascara, and they wear eyeliner, and they wear all sorts of, cosmetics, lip, rouge, lipstick, and all this sort of things. So these are all part of getting the body together, getting the person together to go and perform rituals and worship the Supreme Lord. So this is what he's supposed to do. This is all part of Grihastha life. All part of Grihastha life. It's not something which is separate from Vaishnava Grihastha life. Okay, it may be slightly different for different groups of Vaishnavas, but it's there like that. So he should compose his mind. So after doing all of that, he sits down, and it says here, compose his mind. What most Vaishnavas do is, after they are ready like that, they sit down and they meditate upon their lineage of gurus. They meditate upon and they offer respects to their acharyas. They offer respects to their teachers first. This is called Guru Parampara Anusandhanam. Anusandhanam means to compose the mind, or it means to meditate upon the lineage of gurus, like that. Anusandhanam is deep meditation. So Guru Parampara Anusandhanam, and that is done in different ways in different sects, like that. But normally, some people might call it Mangalacharanam, chanting the Mangalacharanam or meditating on the Mangalacharanam, which mentions the lineage of teachers. In Sri Vaishnavism, it's done by mentioning the Vakya Parampara and the Guru Parampara and the Sloka Parampara. So the Vakya Parampara would be mentioning the successive names of all the gurus from one's own guru all the way back to the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna or Sri Radharani. And the Sloka Parampara would be perhaps mentioning them in terms of verses which are known as pranam mantras or taniyans in Tamil, right, where one has specific mantras that one is taught for the lineage of each teacher. And these mantras might praise the particular teacher for a particular type of, for a particular thing that he's done, a particular aspect of his personality, or great work that he's written, or pastime that he's performed, like that. And it may also include the date and the exact date in the year when is the birthday or the appearance day of the teacher, like that, which is called the Tirunakshatram, or the Abhibharv Tithi. In Hindi or in Sanskrit, we would say Abhibharv Tithi, the appearance day, the lunar day when the person has appeared. In English, we say birthday, and we judge it according to the Gregorian Western calendar. But in India, they always calculate it as to the Vedic calendar, whichever type of Vedic calendar they're using, because there are several in India, in the different places and the different communities. So in South India, it's called Tirunakshatra because the nakshatra, or the star under which a person is born, is more important, which means the moon star, the star that is represented by the phase of the moon. And in the in the northern part of India, the Tithi, or the phase of the moon, is more important, like that. And sometimes we find, like with the appearance day of Lord Krishna, the appearance day of Lord Rama, etc., like that. It's not only the Tithi or the lunar day which is important, but also the nakshatra, the star, which is important. So, just to give an example like that, Lord Krishna was born on Astami, which is the 8th day of the moon, right? The 8th lunar day of the moon. But he was also born under the Rohini nakshatra, which is a particular star, like that. So sometimes the Astami and the nakshatra the star and the Tithi don't coincide, like that, in which case we're going to find out as we go on. There's going to be a lot of discussion about this going from Vilasa, or chapter number 14 to 16, where it talks about different appearance days and different festivals, which are all marked by certain Vedic timings of the year throughout the year, like that. And it'll even come up in chapters 11 and chapters 12 and 13, which talk about Ekadasi Vratam, or the fasting day of Dasami, Ekadasi, and Dwadasi, the 10th, 11th, and 12th days of each lunar month. Okay, so that's all there. So again, he sits down and he meditates upon the Guru Parampara, like that, or he composes his mind, let's say, like that. So now it says one should never steal another's property. Okay, so this is a general rule which is put out there by the person, and even the tiniest thing. So it's the general rule of conduct. Very nice. So we shouldn't think that because this verse in Vishnu Purana is talking about the grihastas, that other people like brahmacharis, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis or women can steal, but only the grihasta male shouldn't steal. No, this is a general rule. This is a general rule of etiquette. Nobody should steal. You shouldn't steal anything, any other person's property. Now, the interesting thing is that if we understand this in a Vaishnava sense, all property belongs to God. God, or the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna or Sriman Narayana, created everything. He therefore owns everything. Even he owns ourselves, our souls. We are the property of God. So we really don't have any property that belongs to us. This is also explained by Srila Prabhupada in the Isa Upanishad. So if we look in the Isa Upanishad, we see there's the very first verse after we have the invocation. All the Upanishads have invocations which are chanted before and after them, which are called Shantipats. They are like composing our mind. They are telling us to be peaceful so that we can understand the meaning of the Upanishad, the meaning of the esoteric meaning of the Vedas. So these Shantipats, one of them is Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Hi. Like that. So peace, peace, peace is said at the end of this. And in the beginning, in that Shantipat for Isa Upanishad, all different Upanishads have different ones like that. It's all explained in Muktika Upanishad, like the last Upanishad in the list of 108 called Muktika Upanishad. Explains there are different Upanishads which belong to different Vedas, the Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Atharva Veda, and Sama Veda. And each one of those Upanishads come in a group. There are certain invocations or shantipats or peace prayers, which go with each one of these Upanishads. So it's very important when we chant or when we speak about a particular Upanishad, we should start off with the peace invocation so that we can be very peaceful like that. And we say Shanti 3 times for emphasis, and also because we want peace from 3 different problems that we have in the material world, Adhyatmika, Bhaukika, and Daivic. So these 3 problems that we have are problems with our own mind and body, problems from other living beings, and problems from material nature, maybe from hurricanes and natural disturbances from the demigods, like that, or from the Devika. Okay, so after the peace mantra, in the beginning of each Upanishad, Purnamana Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate, which says that everything is complete, like that. We're not going to go into it here, but there's a very interesting philosophical understanding of that. The first verse in each Upanishad, Isa Vasyamidam Sarvam Yatkincha Jagatam Jagate Tena Chaktena Punjita Madhvadakasya Svidhanam. The very first verse of each Upanishad talks about everything in this world and beyond this world. Everything that exists is owned and controlled by the Lord. Therefore, one should take only what is necessary for himself, considering everything else to be, somebody else's property, like that. Actually, everything is somebody else's property. It's Krishna's property. It's the Supreme Lord's property. It's Sriman Narayana's property. So one should never steal another's property. Okay, so we should never steal one another's property like that. In fact, however, though, in the material world, we're all thieves. We're all thieves because we're always using the Supreme Lord's property at every turn. Everything belongs to him and we're using it. Right. So whether we've taken permission from him or not to use it, it's his and we've used it. The worst sin that we have committed by being here in this material world is that we have stolen away our own soul from the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord owns our soul, but we think that we own our soul. We think that we are in charge of ourselves. And so one should meditate. In the beginning, when getting up in the morning, one should also meditate upon this, that I have wasted my life. I have stolen my soul away from the Lord. Like that, I have to return that property to the Lord. I have to think in such a way as that everything is the property of the Lord. So there are many aspects to this not stealing others' properties, but a very simple reading of this thing here is that, okay, we don't take things that belong to other people. That's very clear and it's very understandable like that. But there's a much deeper understanding here that we could go into. But let's leave it at that. One should never speak harshly to anyone. Now, what does that mean to speak harshly to somebody like that? Sometimes a person, a grihasta, is in a position where he has to speak harshly to his children or to his wife or whatever it is like that, in order to get that person to follow rules of good behavior, or in order to change their behavior or to change something about them like that. Sometimes it's also possible that the acharya or the guru or the teacher will speak harshly to the student. Anybody who's ever been to school knows that if they're fooling around in class, or if they're not understanding, or they're doing something wrong, that the teacher will chastise them like that. So speaking harshly to somebody as a form of chastisement for the person to learn something, right, is not necessarily wrong. However, it said Satyameva Jayate, the truth has to be told. But in Sanskrit, it's also said that one should try to speak palatably. Try to speak palatably. Like sometimes something is very wrong and you have to just step in and say something or do something, right? It's not correct if something is wrong, or if something is said which is wrong, to just leave it like that and to have other people become affected by that. So one should certainly stand up and tell the truth if falsehood is being spoken. And the whole idea of getting out of this material world is to understand what is the truth. This is the very first stage, right? That there are these different stages. Sambandha, abhideya, and prayojana. Sambandha means sambandha jnana. It means knowledge of the way things are, like that. So the very first realization we have to understand truth is that we are not this body, and that we are actually the property of the Lord. So we're trying to steal away the soul from its rightful owner. Like, we are meant to serve the Supreme Lord. Jiva Swarupoi Nitya Krishna Das. So having understood that truth, we have to also tell that to others. We also have to stand up when others say a falsehood and say, you are that body, or you are not a servant of the Supreme Lord, or you, etc., etc., etc. If they say things which are materialistic, then the Vaishnava has to say something like that. Of course, there are also some etiquettes to be observed. Ramanuja disagreed with his teacher like that when the teacher was trying to teach something, and the teacher was teaching something which was actually incorrect like that, and he disagreed. He didn't say anything, but tears came from his eyes. And the teacher noticed that, and therefore asked him if he had a better explanation of the scripture like that. So it's possible. It's possible to question a person who's in a senior position, a senior Vaishnava, if you feel what they've said is not correct, or if they have quoted the scripture incorrectly like that. And it's possible to question like that, because Lord Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita, Tadvedi paripatrena paripashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninasta pradarshanaha. We approach a guru or approach a teacher to learn from that teacher like that. But approaching the teacher is not just going to the teacher and listening to whatever the teacher says without question like that. Some people will say, in the beginning, you can question the teacher, but after you accept the teacher, you have to accept everything he says. However, that's not what Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. Lord Krishna says the process of approaching a teacher includes pariprashnena sevaya. You have to ask questions. Now, there are different ways of asking questions. You can ask questions in an open-minded way, or you can ask questions in a challenging way. And there are different ways to answer a question. I think Lord Buddha said there's 6 ways to answer a question. Sometimes people answer a question with another question, which is a sort of a trick to get out of it, directly answering the question. But in any case, questioning is a part of the disciple's duty. The disciple has a duty to learn, right? And part of learning is questioning. So correct questions. I always say to people, I say, no question is wrong. No question is wrong or is above, is beneath being asked, right? If you have a question, if you have a doubt, ask the question like that. So here the point is that we can challenge in a nice way by asking questions, right? Instead of, if another Vaishnava or something does something offensive, instead of speaking harshly to him, as is mentioned here, we could say, isn't it incorrect to act in this way in front of the deity? Or isn't it incorrect to act in this way in this circumstance in front of the teacher? Or isn't it incorrect to act this way on Ekadasi or in this festival day? You could just question the person, and you can just say, don't you think that, and you might quote some scripture and you say, oh, because it says in the scripture that we should, not eat certain things on this fast day. Don't you think that perhaps it's offensive or incorrect to do that? And the other person may say, well, that's true. Okay, what you say is true, but there may be some exception to that rule. And he may also quote scripture like that. So in that way, you can have what's called a proper vada, a proper discussion about the aspect, instead of harshly speaking to the person immediately and saying, you're an offender because you're doing this, right? Instead of doing that, we should simply try to question. And I know the tendency is there to criticize. We're all guilty of this. I'm especially guilty of this. The tendency is to criticize, and some people criticize just one group or another group, or some people I tend to be pretty much an equal opportunity offender in this sense, and I do have very fixed opinions, and sometimes I'll criticize many different people like that. It is a fault. It is a fault, and therefore it's mentioned here that one should never speak harshly to people. So if we have to correct another person, or if we're trying to teach a person, whether they're a subordinate, like a wife or children in the family, or whether they are a person who is our senior, either in the family or in the Vaishnava lineage or whatever, if we have to question that person or talk to that person for some reason, we should do it. We should try to do it in a sweet way, in a pleasant way, or simply by asking questions and not by accusing the person of some wrongdoing. We don't know. We can't read the minds of other people, although we can read body language and so many other things like that. We can see if they write or if they speak a particular thing. Maybe we've misunderstood what they wrote, or we've misunderstood what they said like that, and we're coming to the wrong conclusion. That's fine. So therefore, we can just make a simple, non-offensive question. Srila Prabhupada also pointed this out. Sometimes he would make a question when he didn't want to say something to offend a Vaishnava. He would simply ask a question: is this correct, or is this the way you think we should do these things, or like that? Sometimes it's meant to be rhetorical, not answered, and other times it's actually meant to question the person and get them to think about their actions or about their writings or about what they're saying, like that, to think maybe there was another way. And this is a good way to gain enlightenment from the teacher, is by questioning, because we think we understand what the teacher is saying, but actually the understanding is coming from the super soul. Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, from me comes knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So all knowledge, all remembrance, and even all forgetfulness or misunderstanding comes from the Lord as super soul. So that all comes from him. Mama Maya Duratya, he says in Bhagavad Gita, my Maya is very, very good. So if somebody misunderstands something, that's also because of the Supreme Lord. So we don't want to blame the person for misunderstanding. We don't praise the person for understanding. All of that is coming from Krishna, so like that. But especially from misunderstanding, we don't blame the person. In Christianity, they say, don't blame the sinner, blame the sin. Okay? So we want to point out misinformation. We want to point out agyana or ignorance wherever we see it, like that. And we can point it out in a nice way. And perhaps we'll learn something in the process of doing that ourselves. And maybe we're wrong. Maybe we're the person at fault. Maybe we're the person who has a misunderstanding. And hopefully the teachers, the other Vaishnavas and the acharyas and things will teach us, and we will become better people. So this is also, all of these things, are a matter of, are not cut and dry. They're not black and white issues here. But so when it says one should never speak harshly to anyone, like that, I would say there's a lot of times when you actually have to speak harshly to somebody, like that, to save someone's life, to save the life of a cow or a Brahmin, to in the Bhagavatam, for instance, in the Bhagavad Purana, it mentions that you can actually lie. What to speak of speaking harshly, you can lie, pacifying a woman, saving a Brahmin or a cow, from hurt, or to save one's own life. There are certain things that one can do like that. So what to speak of speaking harshly. like that. So we have to understand that all of these rules, there may be some exceptions to these rules, right? Many rules, there's exceptions. Okay, so let's continue on. Text 684 to 687. This may also be, I think it's going to say here, Priyancha. This is also what I just said, that we have to speak sweetly, like that. So we're going to get to that. This may also be from Vishnu Purana. We can look it up and see. So we have text 684 to 687 says, great souls, right? Oh, great souls, one should never speak a lie. So I just mentioned about that in the Bhagavatam. It says you can lie, right? There are some reasons why you could lie, like that. In English, sometimes we say it's a white lie, right? I told a white lie, like that. I might tell something to save somebody, or to save my life, or for some other reason like that. I may also, now there's also reasons why you can never lie. In English, sometimes people say, oh, you promise to do something, then say, cross your heart and hope to die. If you don't, or do you actually really promise that? Do you think you swear on that? Do you have they have some method where they say the promise that you make should not be a lie. When you go into court, they make you put your hand on the scripture, and they make you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So not just the truth, because by telling a half truth, it might be worse than a lie. So you have to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, right? And so you have to swear that by God. And so in the Bhagavatam, what they say is, if you say Om at the beginning, right, and then you make a declaration or a sankalpa, a vow, right? We'll see the different mantras for vows will be coming up. We mentioned it before a little bit, maybe in the second Vilasa, and also in the fourth Vilasa, where we start the daily puja in Hari Bhakti Vilasa. So doing a sankalpa, or making a vow, that may entail making a statement where one cannot lie and tells the truth, and therefore he says Om first, like that. So that's mentioned in the Bhagavatam. So from the Bhagavatam, we can understand that you can lie at certain times, right? Occasions, there are exceptions to telling the truth, but also there are times when you say Omkara, etc. There's certain other things that when you must not lie, and you must not lie, like that. So here is saying one should never speak a lie. Okay, so again, it's in general you should never lie, but in the Bhagavatam there may be some reasons, and some other scriptures also, there may be some reasons why a person lies, even though it may be to one's advantage, right? So one should never find fault in others, take advantage of others' weaknesses, and create enmity with others. One should never travel in a broken vehicle. So this whole thing about taking advantage of other people's weaknesses, creating enmity amongst others, like that, it depends very much on the time, place, and circumstance. One should never travel in a broken vehicle. Exactly what that means, we don't understand. Whether it means in those days, whether they had a cart, an ox cart, or something like that, or a horse-drawn cart, or a cow, bull-drawn vehicle, or whatever it was, buffalo-drawn vehicle. Whether it means the wheel is broken, or how it's broken. I'm not sure what that means exactly. If we looked at the Sanskrit, maybe we could figure it out. Anyway, going on. One should never sit in the shade of a kula tree. Okay, exactly what a kula tree is, we don't know. We'll just have a quick look in the Sanskrit dictionary and see. Kula, right? Kula tree. A kula tree is a... I'm not very sure about that. It says a plant, or Solanum jacquini, or Solanum longum. We have to look that up. Okay, so here's some statement which I've never heard before, that you shouldn't sit in the particular shade of a particular tree. Now, there may be a reason for that. The tree sheds some things on us which contaminate us, or doesn't give good shade, or whatever it is. It's not big enough. So we don't know exactly what that means. So one should never make friendship with a foolish, fallen, crazy, or inimical person, or cause pain like an insect. well, we understand what pain from an insect is like when a mosquito bites you, or a snake, or an insect bites a person, or stings a person. In the case of a bee or a wasp, we can understand that pain. It's being given in the same line here, same sentence as making friends with a foolish, fallen, crazy, or inimical person. Lord Krishna said after Lord Krishna's instructions to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, he also mentions that these instructions should not be told to people who are not austere, who are not devoted, etc. In English we have the saying, casting pearls before swine. If you give pigs, pearls, they won't appreciate them. Okay, so making friendship with a foolish, fallen, crazy, or inimical person, normally that would be a non-Vaishnava. We would consider non-Vaishnavas to be all in that category, because they're all foolish, fallen, crazy, inimical, because they have a completely wrong understanding of what their situation in material nature is. They think that they're the Lord of everything. Right? In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains this mentality: Ishvaraham ham bhogi. Right? The person thinks, I'm the enjoyer. I'm the Lord of everything that I survey. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow you die. Charvaka is the famous Indian philosopher, materialist philosopher, atheistic philosopher, who propounds this type of philosophy. And this is considered to be, by Vaishnavas and by people who are, spiritually aware in general, to be foolishness, right? Foolish, crazy, fallen, inimical, like that, inimical to Vaishnavas. Don't make friends with such people like that. Now, in our ordinary dealings as a grihasta, we may have to deal with people in society who are like this, like that. Now, if the person is a Vaishnava, then and one considers that person to be foolish, fallen, crazy, inimical, etc., like that, then that's a different category. Still, we shouldn't make friends with that person, in the sense that we shouldn't associate with them and let their actions and words and whatever contaminate us. But what we can do, right, because there are so many fallen people in Kali Yuga, is if we have compassion for all sentient beings, what we can do is we can associate with others without letting them associate with us. And that takes a certain amount of maturity, right? In Gaudiya Vaishnavism, there's an idea that there are different levels of Vaishnavas. So there's the Kanistadikari, the beginner, and many people feel that they're beginners. And then there's the Madhyamadikari, there's the somewhat experienced devotee. And then there's the Uttamadikari, the pure devotee. So the two topmost, the Madhyamadikari and the Uttamadikari, these people, they can associate with other persons and give them good association and uplift them. Whereas the Kanistadikari, the person who's just beginning in spiritual life, will be affected by bad association more than the other two. Even the Madhyamadikari has to be concerned if he's associating with people who have bad ideas or bad actions, like that. So the Uttamadikari, of course, he goes and wherever he goes, he creates the atmosphere where he changes other people, like that. The example in Chaitanya Leela is, of course, Jagai and Madai, who were drunken womanizers in Bengal, and they attacked Lord Nityananda, who was trying to preach to them the glories of the holy name. So what happened was that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came there immediately to protect his devotee, Lord Nityananda, and he manifested the Sudarshan Chakra to kill these two. And Lord Nityananda said, no, we can't kill them. We should try to kill their bad mentality. We should try to change them into Vaishnavas, like that. So by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and by the mercy of Lord Nityananda, Jagai and Madai were saved, even though they were sinners and they were foolish and crazy and fallen and inimical persons. They were given good association by the Lord, or by their lordships, and became changed, became reformed, like that. So that's also possible. But here in general, it's a good idea if you're not preaching to somebody and they're crazy, or if they're foolish and fallen or inimical, like that, why be their friend? Why be their friend? You're just asking to have them contaminate you. So this is also a good general rule for Vaishnavas to stay away from the friendship of inimical persons who are not Vaishnavas. One should also stay away from an unchaste woman. Okay, so this is an instruction to grihastas, but it's a good instruction to anybody, right? And similarly, if we say an unchaste woman, we might also say an unchaste man, like that. In terms of ladies, they should stay away from unchaste men, and men should stay away from unchaste women. Exactly what chastity means here, we could probably go into a whole discussion like that, but let's just take the literal meaning of it like that and understand it like that. The husband of an unchaste woman, right? So if an unchaste woman is unchaste, right? Not all unchaste women have husbands, but in this case, he's saying there might be an unchaste woman who has a husband even, and you shouldn't even hang out with him. You should stay away from him. in the same way with a woman shouldn't associate with the wife of an unchaste man, like that. So this can be seen from both sides. Low-class people and liars, right? We should stay away from all those people. An intelligent person should never make friendship with one who is a lavish spender. Now, okay, so as far as being a lavish spender is, what if that person is a great devotee who is lavishly spending on the worship of the Supreme Lord, or is lavishly spending on worship or on honoring the devotees, or honoring the spiritual master, or honoring the teachers? So again, we have to see what kind of lavish spending is going on. But in general, a person who is lavishly spending, it means a person who is a vishayi, a person who is trying to enjoy sense gratification by spending a lot of money. So again, so that Vedanta Deshika wrote a thing called Vairagya Panchagam, which is five verses about detachment from material things or material desires. And he wrote this to the king of the Vijayanagara Empire, who had asked him to come and be part of his court and to be a court paid pundit in the kingdom of Vijayanagara, like that. So he wanted to completely support Vedanta Deshika. He wanted to have him as one of the pundits in his court. A similar thing happened with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. King Pariparudra was a great devotee. King of the Vijayanagara Empire, Krishnadev Rai, was a great devotee. But people like Vedanta Deshika and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they didn't want to associate too much with these lavish kings, lavish spenders, very, very rich people, because they didn't want to become contaminated by that excess wealth, like that. So this is, the example is there in Chaitanya Lila of Chaitanya avoiding going to see the king of Orissa, King Pariparudra. What happened was, in order to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, King Pariparudra dressed basically dressed in very common clothes, dressed like a low-class person, or dressed like a Vaishnava, but a very poor Vaishnava, and approached the Lord, and that way he was able to get the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like that. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't want to go see the king. He didn't want to go to the palace and everything like that. Neither did Vedanta Deshika. So these are very good examples of not making friendship with a lavish spender, who is fond of blaspheming others and who is a cheater. Okay, so especially if the person's a lavish spender and he's also blaspheming others, especially other Vaishnavas, and is also a cheater. A cheater just is natural for everybody to be a cheater, because they're cheating God out of his property by stealing the soul. They've cheated God out of his property, because everything belongs to the Lord, and so we're using his property without his permission, including the soul, our very soul. So we are liars and cheaters and robbers and stealers, and we are in this material world. We are very low, like that. So one should not walk alone on the road. Okay, so that's an interesting thing. I don't know why they've made that a rule like that, but if we see many times people do walk alone on the road, but like that, we also see that there's a possibility. I don't know what about then, But today, when you're on the side of the road or near to a road, there's danger from vehicles on the road. So if you walk alone, there's danger like that. Maybe you shouldn't be alone also on the road, because there might be backwoods or people or bandits who might try to rob you or something like that. I'm not sure exactly the context of this. A lot of these rules and regulations you can understand only after you look in the scripture and see in what context they've mentioned this. Anyway, let's continue on. Text 688 to 690, like that. A leader of men, O leader of men, O leader of men. This may still be from Vishnu Purana. O leader of men, do not swim against the current of a river. Very good advice, okay? Because the river is coming down, and swimming against the river, the current of the river, you just become weak, like that. I experienced when I went to Mayapur for the first time in Mayapur Festival, 1976. I swam across the Ganges from Mayapur to Navadvip, and I swam back, like that. I was a young man, like that. I was a very good swimmer, like that. I felt very confident in swimming, but the Ganges is a very, very difficult river, like that. Now, did I try to swim upstream? No. So therefore, I knew how to swim across a river in such a way that it wouldn't tire me out. And that is, you swim directly across the river, maybe even slightly towards the where the current goes down, and you are taken downstream quite a ways. In fact, I believe I had to walk some miles up the other bank in order to get to a place higher up the river than Mayapur, so I could get back to Mayapur, like that. So this won't be, if you try to cross a river or any body of moving water, even in the ocean, there may be currents and things like that. Don't try to go against the current. As a retired scuba instructor, I can tell you that there are such things as drift dives where we go with the current, like that, and they can be a lot of fun. But if you try to go against the current, either in a river or the ocean, that'll be very difficult. You'll become tired very quickly, and you'll probably drown if that happens, like that. So very good advice. Don't swim against the current of a river. Do not enter a burning house. Seems like simple instruction, but people do that. They're attached to the objects in the house, that their possessions. So they go in and they try and save their material possessions. It's not worth it to lose your life in a burning building to go into it like that. However, there are some people who do go into burning houses, the people who are firemen. They go in there to rescue people who may still be trapped in the flames, like that. This, we say samsara davana lida loka pranaya karana gana gana tvam praptasya karana gunan vasya vande guroshi charanada vindam. Right? We say in the Guru Vastakam, we say that we offer our respectful obeisances unto our spiritual master who saved us from the blazing forest fire. So like that. So in that sense, the spiritual master is coming into the blazing forest fire of this material world to save us, right? The Supreme Lord is coming here to save us. And we're in this blazing forest fire-like situation where there's danger at every step of this material world. So they're coming. The Lord is sending his teachers, he's sending his gurus, he's sending his acharyas and devotees, and he's also coming himself in different avatars to save us. So this is just like entering a burning building, basically. So if we need to go into a burning building to try to save someone else, that's very heroic and that can be accepted. But at the same time, again, one should be qualified to do that, like that. It's not that everybody should try going into a burning building to save other persons. They'll become overcome by the smoke, they'll be overcome by the flames, like that. There are firemen who are specially trained in order to rescue people from burning buildings. They have proper breathing equipment on, they have axes, they have equipment in order to make their way through the place to get to the person who's dying. They have ladders, they have all sorts of paraphernalia to do that. Similarly, we have the gurus, the acharyas, the Vaishnavas, and the avatars of the Supreme Lord who come to this material world, and they have all sorts of ways of saving the souls who are here in this burning forest fire of material existence. Like, so they're like the firemen of spiritual firemen. So it's we can take this literally, right? Don't go into a burning house, right? I would agree totally like that. And we can also take it figuratively that we are in a burning house. And Prabhupada used to say, don't worry about how you got in here. The house is on fire, you get out. So don't worry about how we got to this situation in this material world. We want to get out from this material world, and therefore we have to take to Krishna consciousness. We have to take the spiritual life, and we have to become good Vaishnavas, and that's the way we get out. Do not climb to the top of a tree. Okay, so again, if you're qualified, there are billions of coconuts in India. In Kerala, there are billions of coconuts. In order to get the coconuts, you have to climb to the top of the tree. So definitely some people are climbing to the tops of trees, right? And there are so many reasons why somebody might climb to the top of a tree, right? Or even on top of a mountain or whatever, some very dangerous situation, the top of a cliff. This is not meant to be some blanket statement that nobody can go rock climbing ever in their life. The idea, or tree climbing, let's say, right? The idea here is be careful or be properly trained if you're going to attempt to do something like this, right? That's the whole point. That's the whole point. There are many dangerous things in this material world. The most dangerous thing is to have the mentality that I am the enjoyer and I'm this body and that I'm not a servant of the Supreme Lord. That's the most dangerous thing. But amongst other dangerous things, climbing to the top of the tree is also dangerous, right? We have to be careful when we climb to the top of the tree. So sometimes the fruit is there at the top of the tree. So if we want to get the coconut or we want to get the mango, we have to put the ladder there, or we have to get the picker and we have to climb to the top of the tree like that. So one should be properly instructed on how to get the coconut, how to get the mango, how to do that. Otherwise, don't try it because you will fall down and you will kill yourself. Okay, so one should not gnash the teeth. Gnash the teeth, okay? Gnashing the teeth, sometimes this happens in the sleep automatically. Sometimes people have to wear special mouth guards to stop that. Gnashing the teeth done in a sort of revolting way, in a sort of a offensive way, certainly should not be done in front of Vaishnavas or in front of the Supreme Lord's deity like that. Even when people speak to other Vaishnavas, normally what they'll do is take the right hand and cover the mouth like this, because I get close to the Vaishnava and I want to say something. Prabhu, I want to, Swami, please, can you answer this question for me like that when I'm approaching the Acharya or the teacher like that, or somebody, Swamiji, would you please, we're inviting you to please come and take alms at our house and take prasadam at our house. Like that. So we'll speak very softly, speak respectfully, and we'll place the hand in front of the mouth so that any spit that comes out of the mouth while speaking doesn't go on that person like that. So these are all very nice etiquettes. So don't gnash your teeth. It's not considered to be good etiquette like that. Blow the nose while passing stool. Okay, that's interesting. Like that. I've never thought of that, but there's a time and place to blow your nose, and apparently, according to this statement, you're not supposed to do it while passing stool. Okay, or yawn without covering the mouth. So many people, they yawn like that. They don't cover the mouth like that. These are some etiquettes that we know even in the West like that. One should avoid coughing if he is suffering from asthma. So if somebody's suffering from some disease like that, we saw that in the last few years in the COVID pandemic, one should avoid coughing and spreading a disease like that. If necessary, in Asia, many people, what they do is they wear a face mask, and the whole world has had to do that in the last few years because of the COVID pandemic, like that. So we should be careful with our breath, and because all of the different holes of the body, there are 9. The body is considered to be a city of 9 gates, as it says in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So these gates exude some bad or material substances which are considered very dirty and sometimes contaminating, or even may contain disease like that. So from the eyes, from the nose, from the mouth, from the ears, from all the other holes of the body, these contaminations can come. So like that. So one should cover the mouth if one's doing that. One should blow the nose in a certain way, and it should be, everything should be done in a proper etiquette. One should not laugh loudly. Okay, so sometimes you see these people, they just laugh. They're just laughing quite. Now, this doesn't mean if a person is experiencing the ecstasy by chanting the holy name or doing some other service or seeing a wonderful form of the Lord or experiencing some wonderful festival that he can't laugh loudly, right? It's not the idea is not that if you're laughing loudly for some, because that is some astasatvika vicharas, is some ecstatic symptoms being shown in your life or in your body, but you can't show that. You can do that if you truly have some ecstatic symptom like that. Certainly, laughing loudly is fine. But if it's just some mundane laughter, then just calm it down, tone it down, and laugh, sensibly like that. If something is funny like that, pass air noisily, right? Of course, we shouldn't do any of these things, laughing, passing air, all these sort of things when worshiping the deity. So in seva, in the worship of the deity, we don't do these things before the deity of the Supreme Lord or the teacher, like that. Passing air noisily, again, is not considered. The human body has some byproducts. Okay, one of them is air, and that comes about. We have these 5 life airs: prana, apana, dhyana, udana, and samana. There are also 5 minor airs: Dhananjaya, Krika. I forget all of the 5 of the 10, but they're there. And some of these airs are not very palatable. They're contaminating, and they're not considered good like that. And so everybody has to pass us some air. Everybody laughs. Everybody does these things like that. One should do it in a respectful way, in an etiquette-like way, with proper etiquette. So, sometimes in India and Indian culture, it's considered, for instance, the burping at the end of a meal, right, is considered in some cultures to be appropriate. It's not considered to be a bad thing. That one shows that he's filled up the stomach so much that the air has come out. Of course, according to the Ayurveda, you're supposed to fill half the stomach with food and a quarter with water, and to leave a quarter for air, for proper digestion. But sometimes the food is so good, or the prasadam is so good, that you eat more and more like that, and you get to a point where that air comes out in the form of a burp, and it shows that you are satisfied, or at least you fill the stomach. Maybe you're not satisfied, but you've eaten as much as you could eat because you lustily wanted to eat so much. Okay, so one should temper that. I'm not sure that in different cultures in India it might be considered okay to do that like that. But certainly in front of the deity, in front of the spiritual master, these things should not be done. Make a sound with 2 fingernails. Not sure whether it means 2 fingernails or 2 fingers. Of course, we can make a sound with 2 fingers by snapping the fingers. There are some reasons why we do snap the fingers, for certain reasons. Digbandaha, digvimokaha, right? Closing the directions or opening up the directions, or doing, creating a sound, snapping sound in different rituals. So that's, of course, okay, but as long as it's called for in the procedure in the scripture. But however, making a sound with 2 nails, with 2 fingernails, I'm not exactly sure how you do that, but it's supposed to be against etiquette. One should not rip out grass with his nails. Okay, so what kind of grass are we ripping out here? If it's durva grass or panic grass, the type of grass that we're using in deity worship, right, or in ritual like that, then we should not take it with the nails. The nails are considered impure because we get dirt under the nails, and therefore we should keep the nails very short like that. There may be a tendency for some ladies to keep longer nails like that. Sometimes we see in India somebody keeps one nail, even a man keeps one nail a little bit longer for some reason, for some custom or tradition like that. Usually long nails are not considered good. The nails are like the hair. They're not considered to be pure, and therefore we have to wash them. We have to wash the hair. We have to wash, and we have to trim the nails, right? And just like we pass stool and urine, we get rid of those those byproducts of the body. So we have to trim the nails, and we have to clean underneath the nails and make sure that there's no dirt there like that. But in general, we don't touch the nails to water that we use for any ritual purpose, or touch the nails to when we pluck tulsi, when we take tulsi leaves, or we take durva grass or kusha grass like that. We should not rip the grass with nails. There's a place in the performance of Agnihotra, or the fire ceremony in the yaga, where somebody has to make different items out of kusha grass to represent Brahma and different things like that. And one has to take the length of three palms like this of kusha grass, and turn it into a purcha, which is like a little magic wand of kusha grass for touching things, making things pure. And one has to tie that in a Brahma Granthi, which is a special type of knot, figure of 8 knot. And one might have to therefore take some of the grass off, or even in the Agni Mukam, when one purifies the ghee or some other items like the Prokshani Patra, or the pot used for water for sprinkling and purifying things, one has to take some tips of kusha grass from the blades. So the blade will have a root and will have a tip, and one has to take just the tips and place that in the ghee, and place that in the water of the Prokshani Patra or something like that. So one has to break it and put it on like that. But one should not use the nails to do that, because it contaminates that thing like that. So here we're talking about ripping grass with the nails. It shouldn't be done. So either you cut it something with some other instrument, or you cut it against the edge of a pot that you have there for some other reason, or you break it in a way that doesn't touch the nails. So nor write anything on the ground with a stick. Okay, so you're not supposed to write anything on the ground with a stick. Not exactly sure what you would be writing on the ground with a stick, but it says not to do that. Sometimes we do make mandalas and or even invoke certain deities on the ground temporarily to worship, like Bhuvaraha, the goddess of the earth, and her consort Lord Varaha, the boar incarnation of Vishnu. When we do Mritsangaharanam, collecting holy dirt from at the beginning of any ritual, then we would maybe make the symbol of Lord Varaha and Bhumi on the earth, and in that way we would do that. So I'm not exactly sure about why it's written here, don't write anything on the ground with a stick like that, but it's something to be not done accordingly. So text 691 to 695. Let's just go on a little bit here. So one should not chew his beard. Not chew his beard. So if you have a long beard or something like that, or if the beard is getting in your mouth, don't chew it, right? Why? Because the beard is obviously it's hair. It's not considered to be clean. So why would we chew on it like that? Bite off a chunk of clay. I'm not sure why somebody would be biting a chunk of clay, but don't eat clay, right? This was Mother Yasoda's complaint against Lord Krishna when he was a baby, that he was eating dirt or eating clay like that. Look at the sun or moon in a contaminated state. Okay, so the moon and the sun, Surya Narayana is there within the sun. The moon is also considered the holy planet, and represented by a devata like that. And all of these planets actually have Adi Devatas, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu or Sriman Narayana Krishna. He is also representing all the different planets too. There's different forms. And you can see that in Parashara Hora Shastra. You can look it up in the beginning of Parashara Hora Shastra. It says the different avatars of Vishnu, which represent the different planets, like that. So just as we would not go before the deity in a contaminated state, we should not go before the sun or the moon in a contaminated state. The smell of a dead body is contaminated. And as soon as one should bathe, so one should bathe as soon as possible. So if you go to a funeral, if you go to a cremation or something like that, you should then take bath immediately afterwards. Okay. At night, one should avoid busy intersections. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but it may be because the dust comes up from the vehicles. It may be because of at night you won't be seen. You might be hurt by the particular vehicles. I'm not sure what it means. So at night, one should avoid busy intersections. Sitting under a chaitra tree. Once again, let's have a look and see what the chaitra tree is. Not exactly sure what that is. Chaitya. A chaitya tree. Well, chaitya druma, maybe. Chaitya druma, I'm not sure. Chaitya vriksha, here we go. A religious fig tree. Okay, all right. So apparently, I'm not sure if this is exactly what's meant here, but a chaitya tree is supposed to be a religious fig tree. Ficus religiosus. You're not supposed to sit underneath a fig tree like that. It's considered to be Lord Vishnu like that, and you're not supposed to sit under it. Sitting in a crematorium, yes, like Lord Shiva does that. And we'll just finish in a moment here. Sitting in a crematorium, sitting in a garden. Somehow or other, you're not supposed to sit in a garden. I don't know why. Associating with an unchaste woman, which we already covered, like that. But it is not proper for the devotee to step over the shadow of the deity, and you should also not step over the shadow of the spiritual master. There was an example. Lord Chaitanya had a servant who used to come and he used to massage the Lord or arrange for different things, and he stepped over the Lord in order to serve the Lord while the Lord was sleeping, but he would not step over to get out of the room. So that's a very interesting story. We should look that up. It's not proper for a devotee to step over the shadow of the deity, a brahmana or a ghee lamp.
Om Namo Narayana.